All right. It is now 2:45. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully, you had a good break and have enjoyed the day so far. I'm very glad to still see you here. After a full day of fun, there's still more fun coming. And now I am very excited to introduce you to Shravanti Kundoju, a lead data engineer from Target. Here today with us to talk about unleashing the power of data with Hadoop 3. So, Shravanti, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Kim. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session on Unleash the Power of the Data with Hadoop 3. Let me introduce about myself. I'm Shravanti Kondoju, lead engineer at Target. I do have over 13 years of IT experience and more than 6+ years I have been extensively working into big data infrastructures. And I'm a globally experienced and executed key projects in United States and Asia Pacific. This is my LinkedIn ID if anybody wants to connect. So, as part of the today's conference, the agenda is target big data ecosystems and importance to upgrade from Hadoop 2 to Hadoop 3. What upgrade strategies Target has implemented, and what are the adopted features for Hadoop 3 and Hive 3, which makes Hadoop 3 powerful, and what features we have implemented, and authorizations and the data governance, and few of the depreciated methods which are unsupported interfaces in the Hadoop 3, followed by the question and answers. If you have any questions, you can just post that into the chat window and Kim will be monitoring them and we will be addressing all the questions at the end. Target big data ecosystems. Target has one of the largest Hadoop clusters in the Midwest. It has over 1,000+ servers and it has 120K plus jobs runs on a daily basis, which consisting of dozens of petabytes of the data, active data inside the cluster. And we run the lot of workloads related to the batch, real time, and the near real time processings as well, which are machine learning and deep learning capabilities too. And we have run a lot of data analytics use cases too. And in this, we have used a multiple ecosystem components of the Hadoop. Some are from the Apache and some are from the internally developed tools as well. For data ingestion, we have the data coming from Oracle RDBMS and Postgres systems, MySQL, DB2 systems. We use Apache Scoop tool to bring the data from other systems, other RDBMS systems into a Hadoop data lake. And we also have a Redx. This is an internally developed tool. This mainly gets the data from Kafka to Hadoop data lake. And recently, our data engineering team also come up with a framework called Kelsa, and which uses the Spark JDBC connections and Spark streaming to mainly do the ingestions and processings. And once the ingestions are done, mainly for the processing frameworks, we use Hadoop MapReduce, Spark, Hive, and we use a multiple different ecosystem components and frameworks to process the data. And also when it comes to the NoSQL databases, we actively manage the HBase servers. And we also have the other NoSQL databases like Cassandra, MongoDB, and also we have Neo4j, JNSGraph. Those are the NoSQL databases managed by the other teams. And then for the computational purpose, we use a Yarn, yet another resource negotiator for the resource allocations and to submit your jobs. And also we use for the GPUs and for any kind of a machine learning and the deep learning algorithms, We use a Slum as a workload manager. And we also have the Beaker. This is the internally developed tool for the containerization. When it comes to the storage, our team mainly uses the HDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System. And for the orchestration purpose, we have multiple tools, like mainly we use Oozie workflows and the Oozie coordinators. And also we have a internally developed tool called Automation Portal. You can even submit your jobs through Automation Portal. You can schedule the jobs too. And for the data governance purpose, we do have Apache Atlas. That is mainly for the data governance, which we use. And we have a Ranger. We create a Ranger policies, and this is mainly for the authorizations, which we use. And we also have the data portal as well. That is mainly for the governance. And when it comes to the access points, we have multiple ways through UIs and CLIs, APIs, multiple ways you can connect to the Hadoop data, Hadoop ecosystems, and you can fetch the data. Few of the tools, these are all the internally developed tools, are Honeycomb. This is the query tool where you can connect using the Honeycomb tool, and you can execute a queries by connecting to the LLAP and test engines. And also we have a Xenon. This is the replacement for the Hue file browser. We internally developed this tool. And we also have the Hyperion. This is the log viewer and event viewer tool, which I will be showing a demo of this particular tool as well. We also have other access point with the data miner. And also we do have some of the CLIs and the APIs available. Mainly we have with the edge nodes. So users will be connecting to the edge nodes and they will be accessing and submitting their jobs. And also we have the Xenon API, which is the highly available and highly throughput APIs. And we also use the Knox. This is mainly for JDBC and the ODBC. It acts like a perimeter gateway. If you want to connect from your SQL Workbench or dbeaver or any kind of a third party JDBC tools or ODBC tools, it passes through the Knox for an extra layer of the authentication. Sorry. So these are all the different tool stacks which we use to store the data and also to process the data. Importance to upgrade to Hadoop 3. Our legacy version was the Hadoop 2.7 version, which we have been actively using from quite many years. And the reason why we have started upgrading to the Hadoop 3 is Hadoop 3 is the major release for the Apache version and also for the Hortonworks in the last couple of 4 to 5 years. It addressed thousands of issues, and especially the bugs and enhancement were addressed in this version. And also Hadoop 3 comes up with a lot of new features which has drastically improved the storage efficiency. It has something called eraser coding feature that will help you in storing your data. Instead of storing 3 times, it stores only 1 time, and it maintains the parity bit. So that really helps in doing a storage efficiency. That feature is there only in the Hadoop 3. And also in terms of the high availability and the scalability, it addressed mainly with the multiple namespaces. We do have the multiple namespaces in the Hadoop 3. And also we have multiple standby name nodes as well, especially if you wanted to take any kind of a maintenance, any planned maintenance or any planned reboots if you're doing, or if your active name node crashes, there are two standby name nodes available, so that the maintenance will be much easier, and the scalability, high availability of the systems which you can build. And also Hadoop 3 consisting of interesting feature called containerizations. Even it can spin up a container or like a Docker container inside your Linux environments, inside your node managers, and it also supports this containerization as well. And also it comes up with a lot of new features, especially with the Hive 3, and you can do a lot of optimizations to your existing workloads too. These are all the things which made us to think upgrade from the Hadoop 2 to Hadoop 3. And what strategy we have used. And being a Hadoop 2 to Hadoop 3 is a major version upgrade, we even faced a lot of challenges. Mainly, when you wanted to do any kind of the upgrade, there are two methods like a rolling upgrade or express upgrade. And if you want to do a rolling upgrade from Hadoop 2 to Hadoop 3, which is not possible because Hadoop 3 changed a lot of new features, especially even the metadata formats also have been changed. When it comes to the metadata of your name node, which is a name node edit logs that has been changed. And if you're trying to, because the reason why they have changed is the eraser coding feature. To support that eraser coding feature, they have introduced a new format for the edit logs. That's why if you are directly upgrading from Hadoop 2 to Hadoop 3 through the rolling fashion, which is not possible. And also we do have the other changes as well related to the image transfer protocols. Those things are nothing but especially when you have your one active name node or other standby name node, if you upgrade your one of the name node to third 3 version and 3 to 2, there will not be any communication because the protocol changes have been done, so they cannot communicate with each other. And also there are a lot of other changes related to the Hive as well, especially the disk layout has been changed. In terms of the assets, the Hive 3 supports the everything stored into the asset tables. It supports your merge and delete and upserts, and everything has to be a managed ORCs. Because of that, the disk layout has been changed, and if you are directly want to upgrade from 2 to 3, which is not possible. Same case with the data node directory changes as well. There is a drastic change into the physical structure of your data nodes. So because of that, you can't directly upgrade. So there is another option called express upgrade, but whenever you are doing any kind of express upgrade, you must need to take the downtime. But in Target, we run multiple workloads and business critical applications. So we really do not wanted to go through that approach of shutting down the systems and then do an upgrade. Rather, we finalized with the approach of setting up a parallel cluster with a powerful nodes, which we use as the SSDs and a lot of GPUs and all. And then we started migrating our workloads from Hadoop 2 to Hadoop 3. This is the approach which we have followed. And when it comes to the Hadoop 3 features, there are a lot of features available. And the first important features what we have implemented is with the multiple namespaces. The advantage of this feature is it increase the scalability of your systems. That means especially when you're running in a huge amount of clusters, like large Hadoop clusters, you will be seeing a lot of small file issues because the name node is going to be overhead with a lot of small files. So that is the reason why what we are going to do is we are going to have multiple namespaces. Here the namespace 1 and the namespace 2. Likewise, you can have n number of the namespaces. And in our cases, like we have implemented with the two different namespaces. One is with the system logs and the other one is with the user workloads. And they both have the independent name nodes. The namespace one is as one has one name node and the namespace two has other name node. When it comes to the data node, it implements the common storage, and all these data nodes will send the heartbeat and the block reports to this particular individual name nodes. So this really improves the performance and the scalability of your systems. And the other features related to the HDFS in terms of the Hadoop 3 is additional standby name nodes. Initially, we used to have one active name node and one standby name node. So in case when you're doing a restart of the active name node service and standby name node going to pick that service, it used to become like an active. But instead of that, for a highly available systems, we have a multiple standby name nodes. So in case if something happens to one of the standby name nodes, still we have the support with the other standby name nodes as well. So because of this feature, it provides the highly availability of the cluster. That really helps when you're running a huge amount of the workloads in a large clusters. And also the other features like a storage tiering. The storage tierings are nothing but when you have the multiple storages. For example, you do have the hot data, which keeps changing, and you also have the warm data and you have the cold data. Cold data is like the data usually rarely changes. And in that cases, what we can do is with the help of the storage tiering, you can define that storage levels like SSDs you can keep for the any kind of a hot data, or any kind of the warm data you can keep the disks, and any kind of a cold data if you are having you can keep that into the archive. So those kind of a storage tiering can be done. And also with the enhanced security, we have ranger policies, like we created the ranger policies for HDFS and also for the Hive. And also we have implemented the same for HBase and Atlas, Kafka. We have implemented the policies for the multiple components, which enhances the securities. And also we have enabled the ACLs as well, access control lists. And when it comes to the yarn mainly it comes up with a lot of interesting features related to the GPUs that mainly supports for the generic resource scheduling. You can use the GPUs and the FPGAs. These things got supported from the Hadoop 3.1 version onwards. And also there is a groundwork for the containers. You can spin up a containers in the Docker, the Runc, or you can do a containerization with the help of, you can implement that from the Hadoop 3.x. And also there are other services like we used to have something called Slider, that is mainly when you're running your applications like a long running applications, you can use a slider to schedule your jobs. And right now the Slider is not available and it has been included in the yarn services itself from the 3.x onwards. Apart from that, we also have the other new features with the UI. When it comes to the yarn UI, it comes up with a lot of visualization informations. Like you can see information about CPUs and how many cores it has been taken, what is the memory it has been consumed. You can see the DAGs, directly acyclic graphs. Lot of information you can see it from these new yarn UI. And also we do have advanced scheduling capabilities as well. There is something like auto queues creations, absolute resources especially. And also there is a timeline server v2 version is available now. This is a highly scalable and available systems because timeline server v1 which is not scalable systems, but when it comes to the v2 in the background they're using the HBase for the v2, so it can even do a scalability perspective also. It works pretty good with the timeline server v2. These are all the new features are in Hadoop 3 with the yarn. And another exciting features which we have extensively working and implemented is with the Hive, mainly with the query guards. In this query guards, let's assume when you're using a shared cluster and when multiple teams are using the same, multiple users are using the same cluster, one bad query can cause the cluster resources can consume a lot, so that it can affect all other jobs. That is where this query guards comes into the picture. It will check how much data it has been generating. If it is generating a huge amount of the data within fraction of minutes, we can even do auto kill of those jobs. So there are n number of the criterias for the query guards, which we can set it up by creating a resource plans, and we can do a auto kill of those particular jobs as well. And Another feature which we are extensively using is a storage handler. The advantage of the storage handler is mainly you can bring the data from the traditional RDBMS systems or Kafka or any of the systems into a Hadoop data lake. You need not use any of the scoop connections, or you need not write any of the Spark JDBC jobs for that. This storage handler feature automatically, you just need to specify a table and the details like where exactly which database you need to connect. Is it Oracle? If it is Oracle, you have to specify the OJDBC6 connectors. And if it is a Postgres, you need to use the Postgres driver. I'll be showing a demo on the storage handlers on how to bring the data from the Postgres servers to the Hadoop. And also we have something like Kafka storage handlers are also there. With the help of the Kafka storage handlers, you can just define your which broker you are getting the data from and which topic you want to consume the data. And you can define that where you want to store that particular data with the, like if it is SSL, then you can even specify your trust store, key store information for that. It automatically pulls the data from the Kafka topics and it fetches that data into a Hadoop. And another beauty of this is it also maintains the offsets as well. It has some of the key features called underscore offsets, and there are a couple of fields. So your offset management will be much more easier with that. And also another features are like you have materialized views. I will show you the demo about the materialized views as well, how the data will be fetching from the materialized view instead of fetching it from the entire millions of records from the each table. And also we have ACID transactions, like mainly the Hive 3 comes up with the ACID transactions. It you can enable that to true, and here it has to be a managed table with the ORC to use the updates and merge and upserts and all these things. And also another feature which we are using is a Hive warehouse connector. In the older versions of the Hive, if you want to connect the Hive tables from the Spark, you can directly connect through the Spark shell, or you can directly, but right now, if you want to connect from the Spark to the Hive, it must need to go through a component called Hive warehouse connector. All the data must need to be passed through the warehouse connector itself. For that, internally, it uses the LLAP engine. This LLAP engine will be mainly used for the interactive query analysis as well. And when you do the benchmarking with the Hive LLAP for the interactive query analysis, it really gives you a better results when you compared with the traditional MR engines or TES engines. This is the guardrails like which we were talking about, query guards. For example, if one job has been executed and the execution time is quite a lot of time it has been running, and it is not a streaming job, but still the batch job itself have been running from many hours. So you can identify those kind of a long running jobs, and you can identify the jobs which is taking a huge amount of the HDFS bytes written. And also you can see which of the job is creating a more number of the dynamic partitions, and you can kill those things automatically. You can create a resource plan, and then you can create a trigger on the condition, on which condition is reached and when you can kill your jobs. This is one of the good features. It will really helps the clusters to have a good health checks. And this is a storage handlers. Let me give you a demo on the storage handlers, how it is going to work. In this is mainly consisting of a SERDI called JDBC storage handler SERDI it is going to use. There you are going to specify which of the database you wanted to pull the data. You can give whether it is Oracle. Right now at this point, it supports the Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, DB2 systems. And you can specify the driver details. For the MySQL, we do have the MySQL connectors. If it is Oracle, you can give the OJDBC6 connectors, and Postgres drivers. You can give those driver information. And this JDBC URL is where exactly your source system has been hosted, you can specify those information, and then you can give the connection details. Instead of this, I prefer to give that JCEK files. You can generate your password into a separate file and you can use that password instead of giving your password details over here. Let me give you a demo on storage handler. Yeah, so here I have logged into my Hive shell through a Knox.
Shavanti, can you make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah, is this okay?
Um, yeah, I think that's better.
Yeah, sounds good. So this is just a Hive shell. You can directly connect through a Beeline client, or you can even connect through a Hive shell. And there, what we are trying to do is I'm just logging into my database. Yeah, let me see whether it got connected. Yeah, it has all the data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a storage handler table. Yeah, so when it comes to here, I am creating an external table called some name I'm giving with mini analytics, and zone ID and the zone data ID are the columns which I'm pulling it from the Postgres. And this is the JDBC SERDs like which we are using, the storage handler SERD which I'm using. And now, as part of the table properties, you can specify which of the database you want to connect to, whether you want to connect through the Postgres or MySQL or DB2 and all these things. The JCEK files, which I was mentioning earlier, this is the file where I have generated my password and I have kept it over there so that whoever do the show create table, they cannot see my password. They can just find the file location, but that is only read only to my user itself. No other user can read that particular file. So likewise, I have created a table. You see whether we got the data. Let me copy the name. Select star from Postgres. You see this? In this case, automatically the data has been pulled. So we are not writing any of the, we are not making any of the JDBC connections. Instead of that, usually, initially we used to write a scoop script which can pull the data from those traditional sources here. But with the help of this, it automatically pulls the data. You can even specify the conditions as well based on some where clauses and based on some conditions. If you want to pull, you can pull this data likewise. This is the advantage of the storage handlers. Same thing with the Kafka storage handlers as well. You do have the Kafka storage handlers. Let me open this. In this Kafka storage handlers, the storage handler class is going to be changed. The different SERD is going to be used over here for the Kafka storage handlers. And then you will be defining your details about which Bootstrap server you are getting connected to and what topic you are bringing the data from. And you can give your Kafka trust store information, key store information, and also you can specify the information related to your JKS file as well. If you just mention this, it automatically pulls the data. And also it maintains that offset information as well. We even use the Kafka storage handlers. So till now, we have done extensive usage on these storage handlers. We have seen some of the bugs which we are working with the upstream Apache systems, especially when we are pulling the data from compressed Kafka topics. Like if the Kafka topic is LZO compressed Kafka topic, we are seeing the issues with the storage handlers. Otherwise, most of the things are working pretty fine with the storage handlers too. And there is a still lot of work going on with the storage handlers and improvements of the Hive 3 features too. And the another thing with the materialized view, the advantage of this materialized views, especially in the SQL world, we even have these kind of a materialized views where you can execute a query and whatever the results are there, it is going to be stored into that materialized view. So whenever you're running the similar kind of a query, instead of reading it from the existing table, it can just read the data from the, instead of original table, it can read it from the materialized view itself. So it drastically improves the performance, especially the materialized view can reduce the IO. Let me show you a example on how exactly your materialized view is going to be worked. You can even see by seeing the extend explain extended plan, and you can see the explain plan whether your record table has been pulling it from either actual table or materialized view. If you see this, I do have a sales table. On top of the sales table, I'm creating a materialized view only to get the data on so and so specific date and so on so specific item. You can write your complex query. The end user need not to know about these complex queries at all. You can just they can just use that materialized view name and they can execute that materialized view name too. Yeah, let me show you the demo of that. If you see this, I'm creating a materialized view by create materialized view, and whatever the query, you can write it over here. Yeah. So if you want to see that whether any of the materialized view is created or not, you can s- display that using the show materialized view. Yeah. And display you what are all the materialized views are available. And now you're not going to use this materialized view. Rather, you're going to use the main table itself. And you're going to read that particular data from the main table. But when you're reading the data from the main table, is going to read it from the materialized view. For example, my query is this one, explain extended. I'm selecting couple of items from a sales table where my sale date is so and so. But when this particular query has been submitted on the sales table, instead of reading the records from the sales, it is going to read the records from the holiday sales, because holiday sales is the our materialized view. So it can read the data from this materialized view. The advantage of this is your actual sales table is having a huge amount of the data, millions of records will be having. But when you're running this query, as materialized view is already created behind the scene, it need not to go through that millions of records. Rather, it can directly use this particular view itself. That is the advantage of this. This really improves the performance. And we do have still a lot of work is going on with the Hive. Even we are seeing a lot of limitations, especially in terms of the compactions, and those got some of the things got addressed into the 3.1 and 3.2 versions as well, which we are still doing upstream versions. We are getting that patches and we are applying that patches to the upstreams too, which will address those kind of issues. But we have seen that these in the Hadoop 3, Hive 3 is a major change with respect to the when you want to use your workloads to improve the performance, and you can implement those kind of features, and that really helps. And also when it comes to the authorizations and the data governance, we do have with the Ranger. Inside the Rangers, like it provides the comprehensive security, because and also Ranger consisting of multiple components as well. Mainly it has Ranger admin, and also you have a tag sync, user sync, and KMS. Multiple components are there. And let's assume in your LDAP, if something is getting fetched up, and you can directly see those kind of user updates in your Ranger as well. It directly up, updates those kind of users too. And here we do have the fine grained security also you can provide if you want to provide any kind of a data masking or row level securities, column level securities, and those things also which you can provide with the help of this. And we also have Atlas that is mainly for the data governance purpose which we are using. Like you can do a classification whether it is a PII data, and tagging also which you can done, and you can see the lineage, you can see the audit trail. We are using this Atlas for the data governance and the metadata framework purpose. And we do have some of the unsupported versions. Whatever the previous versions, we used to have the Hive CLI that got depreciated, and also with the Hive MapReduce engine got depreciated. And there is no web catalog and H catalogs. Those things are also got wiped off in the Hadoop 3. And some changes related to the scoop. Now with the Hadoop 3 version, you can't directly load that data from the RDBMS systems to the Hive tables. Rather, you have to take an intermediate step. You have to load it from those RDBMS systems to the HDFS. On top of the HDFS, you have to create the tables. There is no direct way you can load it into the Hive tables with Scoop because of Hive 3 changes with a lot of other things. And also we have other things with the Oozie as well. There is no Hive action. We have something called Hive Server 2 action, which you can use the Hive Server 2 actions to connect. That is what the Beeline client, which we are talking about. There are a lot of features, especially with the highly availability and scalability, and also in terms of the storage efficiency. These are all the features will make Hadoop 3 a must go. And now let's take the questions.
Thank you so much,
Let me go ahead.
Avanti, for a very informational presentation. We do have a couple questions. So we only have 3 minutes left, so keep that in mind as you answer these questions. So the first
Sure.
question is from Stefan. Have you upgraded to Spark 3? If so, what was the upgrade like?
Yeah, so right now we are using a Spark 2.3, and we started looking into the Spark 3 upgrade. That was not done yet. Right now we are on the Spark 2.3 version, and that is in our pipeline, and we will be upgrading our Spark 3 as well because it comes up with a lot of interesting features in terms of a lot of new changes to the structure streaming and Delta Lakes and all other things too.
Yeah, and the next question is from Matt. Does the data in the materialized view get refreshed ever, or is it just static?
Yeah, so this materialized view, or whenever you execute a query, this materialized view get fetched up. It is not only for the first time when it is, because after that, when your data got changed, and it is going to fetch it up for the new data as well.
Yeah, and then we have another question from Charlie. What was the need that drove developing a proprietary tool over using Hue, HUE? I'm not sure how to say that.
Yeah, Hugh, good question.
Hue.
So being from a platform team, we see that there are a lot of issues with the Hue. Especially we always get to see that 500 errors, and we see a lot of performance issues as well with the Hue. When you run a huge amount of query, complex query, if you run, it normally takes lot of time to execute, and also we used to see that lot of performance issues with the Hue. So to go away with that, what we have done is we have come up with a two-way approach. One is with the Xenon UI. Xenon UI will take care about the file browser functionality of the Hue, and we come up with the other tool as well, which is Honeycomb, that takes care about execution of the queries in the Hue. So how we execute the queries in the Hue. The similar way, we have the another tool called Honeycomb, and that takes care about these kind of execution.
Yeah, and another question from Jing Jing. Does your data warehouse live on Hadoop cluster or RDBMS system?
No, it is on the Hadoop clusters itself. So we wanted to maintain a Hadoop as a single source of truth. So all these data coming into these big data systems, multiple source systems into the Hadoop, and from there we have the data scientists. They consume the data from the data lake for the further process.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Sharanti, for a great presentation, and also the audience for being engaged in this session. Now we have a 5-minute break, and our next session starts at 3:30. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Sharanti.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. Have a good rest of your day.